Welcome, everybody, to the AI Powered Women podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Felicia Newhouse. I'm founder of the AI Powered Women Conference at MIT. This is where women leaders come to navigate human-centered AI with clarity, with purpose, and care. This week, we have Liz Brunner. Liz, thanks for being here. And we are excited to dive into some questions. Liz is going to be at our conference, also acting as a moderator. So we're excited to have you here. And I'd love to just have you introduce yourself and, hear about your background a little bit and what brings you here. And especially, at this moment with everything happening for women and AI and the rapid pace of change. And there's so much to cover here, right? Burnout, wellness, our careers, right? So just understanding a bit more about your background and also kind of how you're thinking about this moment for women and leaders.
Well, thank you for having me. And it's just wonderful to be able to spend this time with you on such an important topic, to say the least.
Yeah.
I consider myself Liz 4.0. And what I mean by that is I've had 4 career chapters. I started out as a high school music teacher, singing semi-professionally around the world. And then I felt like there was something more I was supposed to do. So I left teaching without knowing, worked in retail for a few years to pay the bills. And then I ended up in television. Now, that story is a whole nother long story, but I ended up having an amazing career for 28 years as an Emmy Award winning journalist. And then again, I started to get this feeling that there was something more I was supposed to do. And I'll fast forward yet again. I decided to leave television and launch my own business. And so now I am a keynote speaker. I'm an executive communications coach, and I work with leaders all over the world, actually. And I also have a book. My best-selling book is Dare to Own You, Taking Your Authenticity and Dreams into Your Next Chapter. What a lot of people find curious is, how did you go from that to this to this?
Yeah.
Well, I connected the themes and patterns of my life. And what I mean by that is, as a teacher singing and sharing stories through song using my voice as well as singing, then when I was in television, I was sharing other people's stories using my voice. As an executive communications coach, I help other people learn how to tell their stories. And of course, all my vocal background also helps them learn how to use their voice. And now, as a keynote speaker and an author, I'm sharing my story using my voice. So those are the themes and patterns. And I like to call it recreation as opposed to reinvention. To me, reinvention means you're doing a complete 180, which some people do. But recreation, I want people to really dial in on that, because you're taking all of these experiences you've had, good or bad, all of these chapters, and you can recreate and yet have another next chapter. I'm all about next chapters. And let's face it, in this world of AI, we're dealing with next chapters, aren't we?
Oh my gosh, it's so much. And Liz, you're going to also be at the AI Powered Women Conference, like we mentioned
Yes.
earlier. And Liz is also going to be in our Women's Wisdom Lounge, is what we're calling it, which is going to feature women authors. So her book will be there, so you can kind of explore this stuff with Liz. For anybody who's listening, definitely, if you're going to be at the conference, check that out as well, because her book will be there and she'll be able to sign your book as well. And so, yeah, Liz, as far as just the rapid pace of change, I mean, it feels overwhelming for a lot of women. And there's a recent stat that shows that women's jobs actually are up to 3 times more likely to be automated than men's. And so there's a lot of different reasons for this, but there's certain, roles and industries where women play, a more prominent role. And a lot of those industries happen to be the ones that are getting automated faster. So there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of overwhelm, and there's a lot of very justified skepticism about AI for women. And so I guess that kind of goes back to your point earlier, just about reinvention. And what advice would you have for women navigating reinvention right now in such uncertain times? Because this is unlike anything we've experienced as humans, just in terms of the rate of change.
The thing that I think is so important is you're not abandoning who you are. And what makes you you makes you you. And that's where your power lies, in this changing world. And my grandmother Dr. Dorothy Dunning-Chaco used to say, "No knowledge is ever wasted." And it's true. No knowledge is ever wasted, and we have to learn to trust that. Even though we haven't crossed every T and dotted every I as we move forward, we feel very unprepared, we feel very overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed at times,
Yeah.
but we're not unprepared, and we're not starting from scratch. We're starting from experience. Think
Mm,
about that. We're not starting from scratch, we're starting from experience. And what can't be automated, Felicia, is our humanity,
yeah.
is our values, is our creativity, and our unique perspective. So maybe this is calling us all to move forward. And I know it's scary, it's overwhelming. And to your point, many of those jobs may be eliminated,
Yeah.
jobs women do, but that doesn't mean we can't create a next chapter. This is about growth on so many levels, so
Yeah.
many levels.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And at MIT, you're going to be moderating a conversation on AI, a women's leadership, and
Yes.
um, I guess just thinking about like communication and confidence in the AI era. Why is it so critical right now that
Mm.
women leaders claim their voice in shaping this future? Like, what opportunities are we leaving on the table if women's voices are left out? I think there's kind of this area that we kind of keep tiptoeing around, which is
Mhm, mhm.
if women opt out of AI because they're very justified being angry or skeptical or whatever it is, if they just kind of say, no AI, I'm not using it, not going near that, not touching it with a 10-foot pole, what is the risk if they aren't interacting with it, if their voices aren't included, if they step too far away from this technology?
Well, I'm gonna first be the first one to admit, up until about 6 or 7 months ago, I was like, "Oh, I don't know about this AI thing," and I
Yeah.
have now embraced it, and I'm learning so much, and I find it fascinating, and I think what's so important here, Felicia, is if women's voices are not shaping AI, if they're not in there helping to shape it, we are leaving opportunities on the table.
Yeah.
We are leaving the future unfinished because the systems that are built today are going to shape how we communicate, how we connect, and how we work.
Yeah.
And so women's voices are hugely important. And let's be honest about this. There is research out there that says when women are at the table, businesses are more successful. We cannot leave that out. We have relational intelligence, we have empathy, we have vision. All of that we need to bring to the table as we shape the future of AI. Hugely important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it's a really good point because if women aren't at the table, I mean, it's going to happen whether we like it or not. Even if
100%.
we hate AI and it's a terrible technology, it destroys humanity. If we take a step back and just say we want nothing to do with that, like we're removed from the conversation too, right? So there's
Exactly.
this really interesting and I think very uncomfortable balance we're all trying to strike right now around engaging with the technology, learning about it, getting educated about it, having an active role with its development, with its usage, with its application, and also being very wary of it at the same time, what its limitations, what its dangers are, pumping the brakes, asking the leaders really hard questions behind this too. So
Yes.
really being able to call people out and hold them accountable. And that requires, yeah, being involved to some extent with the technology. Um, and women are carrying so much, right? Like they're carrying like I mean oftentimes caregiving roles of their parents, caregiving roles of their children. We have the sandwich generation that's in between both of those at the same time. They've got their professional roles. They're navigating, now with AI's impact on their jobs, on their identity. And so in addition to all that, I mean, what are you seeing that are the biggest dilemmas
Oh,
facing women leaders? I mean, those are some of them.
well,
And I
what
know burnout is one too. So
what's interesting, there's so many things to sort of unpack there. Number 1, women for generations have been the ones who've been carrying the load, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it's family responsibilities. We've been carrying that load, and now we're also expected to carry the AI load and figure all of this out, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's very real. And I think one of the biggest dilemmas is that whole point about burnout and resilience.
Yeah.
Burnout is real.
Yeah.
44% of the workforce feels that they are burned out, male and female. That's
Unbelievable,
nearly
right?
half the people who are employed.
Yeah.
So that's really scary. And then you add on to that the resilience piece. Oh my God, I'm exhausted. Resilience fatigue is
Yeah.
real. In fact, I just posted a blog about this. So people can go to my website, lizbrunner.com, and look at the Brunner blog because I just talked about this
Yeah.
because it
I'd
is
love to hear
so
more about
real.
resilience fatigue. How do you define
Yes.
that?
Well, first of all, we are so tired of having to pick up the ball. We're so tired of having to always have the answer. We're so tired of always figuring things out.
Yeah. So it's
That's
almost like they have to keep it all held together. So there's
exactly,
almost like a numbing out that's
ex
happening where
exactly.
they don't even have the safe emotional space to drop into
No,
how they're feeling, have it acknowledged, have it released. Like there's not the ability to go through that process of purging. So they just keep bearing the burden and the bricks just keep piling up, right?
they do, and so resilience fatigue is real, burnout is real. Those are things that are happening in the workplace. Now,
Yeah.
what can we do about it? Well, first of all, I want our listeners to remind themselves it is okay to pause
Mm.
and not know the answer to everything. And that's very hard as women. We want to solve everything. We want to fix it. We want to make sure that we're staying on top of everything. It is okay to pause. And the second thing that a lot of women forget because we get so busy is what are the coping strategies that you need in order to move through this? And so create maybe your own little toolbox of coping strategies. Maybe that's physical exercise. Maybe it's just movement. Maybe it's just breathing and sitting still. And how about sleep? Let's not forget sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are some of the things that can help us. And another one that I think is very hard for women in particular is setting boundaries,
Mm.
knowing when to say yes and
Yeah.
knowing when to say no and having the courage to say no, giving yourself permission to say no. And
Yeah.
that is so hard. Oh my gosh, the guilt that you feel and all those other emotions start coming into play.
Yeah.
But it is hugely important to set those boundaries. And I also believe it comes back to what I talk a lot about, which is intentional transformation. That means that you align your physical, your mental, and your relational self. And when you do that, you gain more confidence to say no. You gain more confidence to have a pause. You
Yeah.
gain more confidence to say, I can do this. You also then have authenticity, which
Mm.
builds trust in relationships. It also gives you more influence. When you can say no, guess what? You're helping other people learn how to say no as well. There's so
Yeah.
many domino effects to all of this. It really matters.
Yeah, and I guess it's like building your own internal resources, right? It's so easy as
Yes.
women to just keep hemorrhaging out and giving and giving, and if we don't give to ourselves, we don't have where it's almost like in some indirect way by being selfish, you're being selfless, right? Because then you have even more to give. So there is that piece that's hard to like. We almost have to retrain our brains around this stuff
We
of like,
do.
no, I need to schedule that time in my calendar for that self care. No, I need to schedule the time for the gym. I got to schedule time for the meditation because that is investing into other people. It is investing into my business. It is
I
investing into the world around me.
When
So
you
it's almost
invest in yourself,
reframing.
yeah, when you invest in yourself, you are able, believe it or not, to give more. And we come back to the analogy that is very prevalent. People talked about it before. Put on your oxygen mask first on the
Yeah.
airplane.
Yeah.
And that is so true. If you can't fill your own tank, you're going to have nothing to give. You're eventually going to burn out. And we already know that. We
Yeah.
already know that.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think this is where the conference and this content is at a very interesting time right now because there's this kind of intersection of, AI and upskilling and kind of future proofing
Mhm.
our careers and learning these very real skills and understanding what's even happening and what's going on and how to apply it. And then there's this piece around stepping into our power almost as leaders too, and empowering our own voices so that we can take a seat at the table and we can take up space. But to your point, in order to get to that place, we have to go back and make sure our internal resources are filled, that our cup is filled, because it requires a lot of courage and, to be frank, a lot of energy to show up in these spaces right now of rapid change and fear and anger and unknown, and there's just so much happening on every level right now in the world. And so I think for women, we need that extra fuel to be able to handle it and be resilient, because there's so much to offer. We have so much to
We
offer, and the
do.
world needs us to show up. And I
Yes.
think especially this moment in history, it needs us to
Yes.
show up. So
And just because it's scary, just because it's overwhelming, and just because we feel unprepared does not mean that we can't do it. And I want to
that's
come
right.
back to the point about having courage to give yourself permission. That is so hard for women. We have to be able to do that because when we do, we shine more brightly. We have more presence. We have more authenticity. And it, again, I come back to the intentional transformation. It is a choice. You have to be self-aware. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to grow. You have to be open to change, open to doing things differently, open to learning new concepts, new ideas. It's scary, but
It
it's
is.
okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I think women do that so beautifully. I think that's one of women's superpowers is,
Yes.
standing in that messy middle of like the unknown and the vulnerability and just being in all of the unknown humanity that we're moving through right now. So it's an interesting time to be alive and watch all this. That's for sure, to just
It
see how it
is.
all unfolds. So, well, Liz, I'm very excited to have you at the conference and to have your voice there at this important session, at this important, conference in this time in history. And I guess before we end today, my last question is around authenticity.
Mm,
And we've talked about this a bit, but I guess more deeply around like how women can really double down right now on their authenticity when technology blurs the lines, right? So
mhm.
I mean, even just from the standpoint of AI can generate voices and faces and even identities, and it's blurring the line around truth,
Yep.
our news, our content, what's real, what's not,
Mhm.
and kind of back to this vulnerability we talked about and women's superpower. Um, where do you think women play a role here, and how can they really cultivate this authenticity during this time? Like you talked about alignment and aligning with ourselves. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, that's a big subject. Intentional transformation is really huge in how you align all of that, your physical, your mental, and relational self. But when you do, that's when you get the presence and the confidence and the authenticity and the influence. But here's what I think is so important for people to remember. AI may be able to generate, to your point, images and our voices, but it can't generate me. It can't generate you. And that's where our power lies. That's where our authenticity lies. It maybe can create our voices, but it's not going to have our lived experience.
Right.
It's not going to know that. No matter how much information we input, it's not going to know our lived experience. And that is so crucial. And when you can own that, when you can own who you are on every level, that's where the authenticity comes in. When you give yourself permission to own who you are, the courage to own who you are, all of who you are, that's where your power lies. And that's when people listen to you. That's when
Yeah.
people trust you. And
Yeah.
that's when people follow you. And so I have hope for the future. I really do, despite this
Yeah.
very uncertain time that we're kind of living in. But you know what? Every interaction that we have is human.
Yeah.
Even we have to interact with a machine, it's still us as a human being interacting with it.
Yeah.
It's still human.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, this moment I think is a lot about remembering, right? We don't have
Yes.
to do anything wildly different. It's just remembering what makes us uniquely human and stepping into that
Yes.
more powerfully. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Liz. Thank you for this conversation. It was so many great reminders of just the simplicity that we need to kind of step back into inside ourselves in those quiet spaces to kind of navigate all this change right now. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and I'm really excited about the summit, and I look forward to seeing everyone there, and I hope they'll come over to the women's lounge, what we're calling it, the Wisdom Lounge, and see me and say hello and come to the summit and just open yourselves up to
Yeah.
what's possible.
Yeah. Can't wait. Look forward to it. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
And for everybody out there, thank you for joining. And if today's conversation gave you something to think about, share it with another woman leader who's ready to build with more courage, clarity, and heart. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And make sure you follow Liz on social media. She's on LinkedIn and has a lot of wisdom to share. So thank you, everybody.